Hi everybody, my name's Patrick and I own MacDonald Timing. Ever since the MeetPro Direct Athletics Flow MileSplit merger, I've been getting requests for some new videos to kind of explain this, that, and the other thing. And the most common one that I've gotten so far from several people is how to most effectively use MeetPro with a chip system, which is kind of a fraught question for me. And first of all, I should definitely explain that this video might be fairly dry, but just because you don't, maybe you're like me and you use finish links, this video might actually still contain something for you that might be helpful if you are a MeetPro/chip timer. So I'm sorry that it's dry, it's just kind of me talking, because it's really just about the explanation of the vector that works the best, in my opinion. And that said, I do use finish links, and I think it's a better way to do it. If you're timing collegiate meets, you really need to have a camera anyway. But it provides obviously an empirical idea of what's happening at the finish line. Now, finish links is a synchronous tool, right? Like if the camera's not on when people are coming across the line to the finish, then you don't get an image of them, and you're kind of losing some of the data, at least the resolution. So for me, finish links is a great synchronous tool. Now there's some asynchronous aspects to it, but like it's mostly asynchronous. It's happening now. Here it is. And it's really helpful in finish links to be in the event so that you capture the start time and you know that that's actually the start time for the event and you can save it, all that stuff. But for some reasons, that's not always practical. Some people don't believe that's actually the best use of the software. People ask me sometimes, like, why would you use finish links? And I'm like, well, because cameras don't lie nearly as well as kids do. It happens probably once or twice a month during cross season where some coach comes up and says, my kid's not in the results. And it's like, well, because they didn't finish. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I don't have them on camera. They go talk to the kid. They come back 5 minutes later and say, you're right. They dropped out with a mile to go. It literally happens all the time. If you don't have a camera, then how do you know? So I'm just going to leave that there. But my thing with the synchronous asynchronous nature is that MeetPro really is a database tool. It's not really supposed to be a timing tool. Now it does have timing tools built into it. You can, from MeetPro, go in and listen to a reader port and get the data from it. It's very simple. You just open up the interface of the chip system you want to. You type in the IP address of the reader itself, and then whatever port it's putting out the data on. In Ipico's terms, it's usually 10,000. So whatever the IP address and 10,000, you're good to go. But Windows is Windows, and sometimes it's not always easy for these things to communicate, or you're maybe missing a link in the middle of it. Maybe MeetPro is firewalled and against public networks or private networks or whatever. There's a litany of reasons why it's maybe not always the best. For me, though, it's actually the power of having data that is nice and clean and being able to bring it in and put it where you want. So that's the thing I would tell you. If you're a timer, use all these things, you might still need or have a use case for this very specific scenario. Now, I'll tell you, we did this past weekend. Finish Links was just playing the Finish Links was not happy, and so we had to bring in the data to MeetPro from the dashboard, and it all worked. Now, thankfully the races were relatively small, and we had one race entirely where the cameras did not record anything whatsoever. Thankfully, they did record all the chips, and so we got all the chips in, no problem, in the lift file. We're good to go. And then the other races, the cameras did work, but the dashboard worked, and we were able to kind of, after the fact, figure things out and handshake, and we were good to go. But last year I did a conference championship, and there was a split mat on the course. It's 1 mile. It's about 350 feet away. But there was a ridge in between, and people were standing on that ridge as they went by, and so the nanostations couldn't communicate directly at the time that the actual athletes were crossing. It was not very helpful. But the good news is that the end file that Links produced didn't have anything in that split column, but in MeetPro you can bring in splits, or you can bring in chip reads, and you can apply them to a specific split. So I was able to say, hey, these are for the 1 mile split. It didn't save over the information from like the 3 or the 4 mile splits or the finish or anything like that. It said, oh, well, these are the mile splits, and they put them right in place. And I was able to fill out the results fully at the end of the day, which is really, really helpful. Now, so the idea is within the dashboard, you're outputting the information that you specifically need, and all that dashboard file, it's a text, string basically. It tells you what chip it was, what date it happened on, and what time it happened on. So as long as your reader is set to the appropriate time according to the clock, and you have the start time, you are good to go basically, which is really, really phenomenal. So you can create this data, and then you can follow up later and put it into MeetPro and be good to go. The reason why I would do it this way is that it would allow for me to stop staring at the screen and trying to figure out if everybody's read populates and be present at the finish. I presume if I had to do it this way without a camera, I'd have some sort of timing app on my phone, and I would be hitting a button, a split button for people that come across. And if the reader doesn't beep, I would go and see who that person was, note what time it was and what chip it was. That way I can put their results back in on the back end. But if I was focused on what's happening on screen, it would probably be a little bit more difficult for me to hop out and try to figure out what was going on. So that is my particular preference. If you want to, you can use the onboard materials that MeetPro provides. Open up the reader stream, listen to the right port for whatever your reader is doing, and you can have that and be good to go. But if you have access to more powerful tools, the recording tools that your reader or your reader company provides, that is what I would actually recommend doing. Not coming in directly with that information into MeetPro, but rather using the reader tools itself so that you can go in, you can make sure that you're delineating the exact correct race at the right time, and then you know that the data that is created during that time, that window, is good to go. And with Ipico, you have the dashboard. I assume that there's some sort of other thing. I know that there is for race result, and I assume there's some other things for other companies out there too. All I know is my personal stuff, which is Ipico, and the dashboard tool is really powerful. So, sorry, I know this is just logic and talking. If you've gotten this far, thanks for watching. You should definitely be a subscriber. Thank you. Remember, time is luck.